Cash. I see lots of talk about cashless, the people for and the people against. I'll put my 2 pence worth in. I find it a strange concept, but work well with it. Money. Cash has been the norm for a very long time, and in principle, theory and practice, it works. You earn it, you spend it, you live. It seems simple. And it is. But somewhere along the line, someone decided to shoehorn themselves between the simple transaction of one person giving it and one person receiving it. The banks are the middleman between you and your money. They hold it for you and in turn get paid for that privilege. In fact, banks only get to make huge amounts of money because we have money. They also then get to see what you do with your money. There is then a financial record for you. It's a win-win for them. Then someone else decided that there needed to be another middleman between the seller, the bank and the purchaser. They introduced the merchant fees via card payments, and now there are 2 middlemen making money from seller and buyer transaction. So now you have 2 outside parties essentially making money from the fact that you have it and that you decide to spend it. Seems ridiculous to me, but what do I know? Now, with the looming threat of cashless, I felt there is a need to review cash again and how it actually affords a number of freedoms many seem to overlook. That is my assumption, and it could be that people may just not care, but either way, the outcome doesn't change because you may feel differently about it. It is not the idea in principle of having a cashless society that bothers me. On the face of it, it sounds practical and efficient. All your monetary transactions recorded and monitored, reviewed and analysed. Doesn't sound weird at all. Much. Have to say, despite the fact that I lead a very boring record, I really don't want there being a central point showing what I watch, eat, read, wear, like, don't like, who I talk to, what I say. Why should that be recorded anywhere? Back in the day, you would have had to pull together an awful lot of receipts for that and follow someone for a really long time. Now most people share all that on public forums, which is fine if they don't mind. I personally still believe that I wouldn't want anyone finding my personal diary if I had one. And that is what it would contain. Your hopes, dreams and fears, who you like and hate that week. But now it's all online, shared on a daily basis freely. Another thing that I don't understand, and think maybe I am wrong about people and they really don't mind what I see as an intrusion. Back to the issue of cash. The problem I instantly think of with that idea is all the areas of life it will affect. Firstly though, I'll put the plus sides forward and see if you think you personally will benefit from any of these. They will be able to make sure you pay all your taxes on earnings because they will know about all your income. They can stop drug dealers and money laundering, but fail to mention the amount of it that happens online. And as far as I know, criminals have bank accounts and cryptocurrency is being used in all sorts of enterprises, so it might not minimise that after all. That's the advertised benefit for the system creators. So what are the upsides to us, the user of this digital credit system? The ones whose money is being taken from us or will simply bypass us to be given back at somebody else's whim? Because from where I'm sitting, all the benefits are with the controller of your money. As we are pushed into a society where social credit scores are becoming the norm, reward-based games and point scoring being inducted into people's psyche, I can't help but worry that access to your finances will be dictated in the future as they try to have more control generally over people's decisions in life. Like a parent who decides if you are allowed to spend that much or are allowed to take part in an activity. We know these systems already exist in other countries, so is it not unreasonable to think it's a blueprint to be tried on others? Maybe I'm wrong to think that people should be outraged and horrified at the idea of someone telling you where to go, what to buy and who not to talk to. As a grown-up, the idea of being treated like a child again is awful and one I won't be going along with. But to my surprise, I have witnessed multiple examples of people handing over responsibility for themselves and their lives to the state. I can only imagine they think it is there to help you, or look after you, or to wrap an arm around you and tell you it will be alright. Once I looked into it further, I could see this was not by accident. I enjoy reading social history to try and work out how we got to where we are, and I suspect the concept was born after World War II when the cradle to grave ran alongside the NHS being created, giving the people the impression the government was here to look after you from birth to death. Weirdly though, I read a lot about the Victorian era growing up and had no idea there would be government handouts and benefits when you got older. I believed that if you didn't work, you didn't eat, therefore you would die or end up in the workhouse/poorhouse. So thought I had better be resourceful and employable. From around 10 years old, I thought this was how it would be. I always thought at a minimum I could be a chambermaid or a cleaner, and I was frustrated I wasn't able to work until 16. It was quite a surprise to learn about benefits for unemployed people, as well as disability benefit, which made sense, and child benefit, which I really couldn't get my head round why we had that at all. I also thought it seemed like a way to control people, restrict how much they have and tarnish them. It used to have a bit of a stigma attached to say you were on benefits, not so much now. But on the face of it, they were a helping hand, whereas I saw it as an apron string being tied around you, and it felt as such for the short time I had to claim unemployment benefits in my late teens. I kind of see the same thing with only cashless. The only way they can monitor, dictate, control and decide things for you is through your ability to live. Money. It can all tie back to that. If you have to scan in anywhere to buy food, what if you are rejected? What if the system crashes? What if they freeze your account? What if you don't have enough to buy what you need? You can't borrow any money because you aren't allowed. It used to sound like crazy talk, and now it's potential reality. Sugar tax, another one that raises alarm bells. Trust me, it's all tied in. They decide if you are too fat for whatever scale someone else somewhere decides. So you are put on a diet by the state, because you've got to save the NHS. You try to buy a treat, denied. You want to have a drink, water only. And if anyone else buys you something, they will know because of all the cameras and because you had to log in. That person will either be denied too, or deducted social credit points. The odd thing about that is, some people do genuinely seem to like the idea. They have admitted they cannot control their own lives or finances, and they would feel safer and happier if someone else took responsibility. Or they openly admit they want to see people punished for lack of willpower or habits. I can't see any other reason for it. Why else would people be okay with that idea becoming part of their lives or inflicting it on others? Or having an overseer or surrogate parent setting all the rules and enforcing them? Words and their real meaning seem to have been terribly lost of late, and the concepts that accompany those words are being overlooked or not given the time they deserve. I like to use words to describe exactly what I mean, but now know that not everyone has the same meaning for things. Not everyone can imagine with pictures in mind, but however you do, please try and imagine where this all goes. And if you do not see a problem with where we are, or how we got here, then good for you. I, however, am keeping a keen eye on what is currently unfolding at an alarming pace. These are strange times upon us. Cash buys freedom. I've covered this in previous articles: cash, monitoring, and do you want to be monitored? But as it keeps rolling forward, I will continue to try and really explain how this can be used against people, and to control them and their purchases, and if you haven't quite seen it for what it is yet. Imagine when you were a kid, if you can remember, and imagine you getting given pocket money. Back in the day, I would have to earn my pocket money, usually by helping with chores, but some got it for nothing, and some not at all. But the point was, once it was put into your hand, it was yours. You could spend it where you liked, on what you wanted, within age limits obviously. And for a short time, you had a bit of money freedom, choices. Now imagine, someone giving you your pocket money and then taking 20% back. Because that's how money works, by going back into the pot. That's tax for you. Then they say that they will hold on to the other 80% for you, and that you can have it when you want it, but you have to ask them for it first. And you can spend it where you want, as long as they approve it. And they will charge you a small amount for holding it for you. That's a bank. So your pocket money giver is now presiding over your money, and you have to ask for it. They decide that they don't want to give it to you. Instead, they will go with you to spend it and watch what you buy. If they don't like it, they won't let you buy it. Honestly, this was an awful part of childhood, being monitored and having your purchases decided and deemed acceptable or not. Why people want it as an adult astounds me. So, if you earned or got given £1 and were only allowed 80p of it, and of that 80p they said you could only buy toilet roll with it, you wouldn't be as excited to get given 80p, would you? Unless you really needed it, of course. Well, that seems to be how living costs now work. They set the amount and tell you all your money has to go on that one thing. People are being babied, and have been for some time now, and money used as a weapon against us and to control us. They set and bring down the value of it. They increase prices. They hold down wages. It's so obvious, it's sickening. Yet people still stumble around confused and worried they can't afford stuff. You aren't meant to. That's the point. Being able to earn money and spend it on living shouldn't even be necessary given the resources and technology we have access to, individually and as a collective. We should have plenty of food and land to go round. But the people calling the shots don't want health, freedom and advancement because they can't control what happens thereafter. I believe what they want with cashless and cardless is to scan people so that you can only buy your rationed amount. No unauthorised purchases. By taking away the till person, there is no one to argue with. You don't scan in, no access. Food rations allocated on weight, health and compliance. No sharing or helping others. You won't be allowed. Let's imagine again, but this time imagine a control freak who needs to know your every move, where you go, what you do, who you speak with, what you say, what you eat, what you think. Sounds like a stalker or controller, doesn't it? Well, that's the one world government to oversee us all they are after, who cannot bear to think that we can, quite competently I might add, flourish without their maniacal leadership and desperate grip of control. We need to detach ourselves, and soon, before they have everyone monitored from cradle to grave with internal implants. You know, the ones you won't be able to escape from because they are inside you. Because that is where it is going, if they haven't already started doing it behind people's backs. They are being very open and clear with their plans, and being distracted or in denial won't help anyone. That is partly what they are counting on, a lethargy and disconnect towards reality, and wanting people to overlook their general malaise, and instead give a warm welcome to their dysfunctional, altered and newly created metaverse. Once they make society seem too complicated to navigate for the average person, they will gladly accept a more streamlined version of society and reality. But that will be their undoing. Once you are plugged in, I don't think there is any getting out. Movies would have you believe that there is a way out, or that someone else will save the day. But we have seen that is not the case. You save yourself, and by doing so, you can help to save others. From the system of rules and regulation that will follow, which will seek to control and dictate every aspect of people's lives. Freedom may not be what we think it is, but it isn't what they say it is. But back to the main point, cash. If we are able to earn cash and spend it where we choose, then I don't see how their plan can work. For years we have been led to believe they wanted everything digital for tax purposes, so they can make sure they know how much you earn and who paid you. Making sure you have to pay through a bank so that the money is traceable. And on the face of it, it sounded legit, despite the fact that taxes aren't really legit. But now we have seen how they appropriate those taxes and squander them and inflate their own wealth, draining the very people they pretend to serve, right under our noses no less. No wonder they think we are stupid. We have behaved so, and walked straight into their trap. It's a precarious time, and we should be mindful of what comes next, taking a bit of time to really think through what is occurring, where it will lead, and just how people really fit into their future plans. Maybe they think if they mess with us long enough and create enough problems for us, we will just turn on ourselves. But I can't help thinking there is something they haven't quite factored in. I'm not sure what it is yet, but the feeling is growing. You can bank on it. I'm going to talk about banks. The financial world and economy are dominated by them. The portfolios they wield are eye-watering, but the premise of what they are and what they used to offer versus what they have morphed into is becoming clearer as time goes on. Imagine you have a piggy bank and you put your coins into it for safekeeping or for a rainy day. Funny they picked a pig to hold on to your money, isn't it? Greedy as a pig, as Bricktop would say. But you have your money in your piggy bank and you put it to one side. When needed, you take the money out, use it, start over. Really easy, and will be why banks work to start with. But let's now imagine when you go to get some, your little piggy won't pay up unless you pay a fee. And the time after that, you have to pay a fee and you can't get all the money out. Next time, fee, restricted amount, and the piggy bank has moved somewhere else, so it takes you a while to find it. Next time, piggy says you made too much, and so on. Not being funny, but you would stop using that piggy bank, thinking it had lost control of itself and was just meant to be a helping hand to manage your money. But instead, you will no longer be allowed to manage your money, because they either don't want you having any in the capacity we once knew it, or they want to dictate it, fully. Now, let's take Piggy further, who starts working with your employer, and the tax office, and all other authorities. Your piggy bank is no longer even in your house, and gets looked at by whoever thinks it necessary. And Piggy keeps taking his cut. Every time you put money in and charges a fee to the person you buy from, every time you buy something, following you in presents while you spend. Then one day you go to buy something Piggy doesn't like. No. Transaction blocked. Like a controlling parent or partner, Piggy takes over all your finances, decides you aren't competent anymore. Or something like that. But maybe it helps to imagine for some that the little cute money saver that started out as a small help has grown into a giant pig bursting at the seams, growing in size constantly, ready to explode and take people's rainy days with it. Just saying sorry, I dropped it all somewhere and no there isn't any. Not even saying sorry, just explaining how and why, with no real accountability. Just more people getting rich off other people's hard work. It's a perfect trap. Money, but not as you know it. It's being called digital currency. But let's be honest, that isn't what it really is. Cash used to be money, and for now still is, but they are trying to phase that out, because with it comes freedoms they do not want us to have. My other articles covering this include Cash Buys Freedom, which goes into that in more detail, as well as Do You Want to Be Monitored, looking at their angle of monitoring, but it all ties into this. One currency to rule them all. So what of the new currency they want to rule the world with? One currency suits them just fine, and one which is monitorable and controllable at every second of every waking moment. Sounds a tad excessive and obsessive, but hey, they are going to try and do it anyway, it seems. The main points of issue many people have are as follows. Your digital currency will be linked to a social credit score, as they have so conveniently been showing us through little vids here and there from China. They don't like what you say, no spend. Don't like how you think or where you go, no spend. No travel, no food, no life. Sounds idyllic, doesn't it? They've also announced it will have an expiry date. Again, how convenient. For them to push the consumerism gravy train, forcing people to spend, earn more credits, comply and behave to retain or be able to spend those credits, play their games to get the credits. But they can take away your credits if they so choose. Like snakes and ladders, I guess, but with your life, time and money. Again, what about that sounds appealing? I don't know. So far, I haven't heard one benefit to the actual people it affects on a massive scale. Only enslavement and control. The benefits are for those who make great profits at your expense and fund a lifestyle that they have grown rather accustomed to and require your compliance and acceptance of this new regime for them to stay as they are. In control, giddy with power and getting more monstrous by the day. Absolute power corrupts, they say, and I have to agree. But money has played a great part too. Greed of wealth and power combined. And here we are, The wealthiest people in the world still trying to make more, take more, pretend to want to help people. It's maddening and disappointing in equal measure. If you've been paying attention this last couple of weeks online or in the news, you may have noticed a certain online payment provider, PayPal, decided to just shut down a few accounts and withhold money. Only once the public, press, and politicians got involved has this been reversed. But more people are now aware and wary. Banks have been doing it too, and I've read today that the FBI are being taken to court in the States because they tricked a judge to issue a warrant so they could raid a Beverly Hills safety deposit facility and stole $87 million worth of cash, gold, jewellery and assets from random innocent Americans. So the professional corporations around us are actually just a rather large criminal syndicate operation, it would seem, who are trying to make sure we don't have any way of sustaining ourselves without them. They don't want us having access to money, food, housing, so sure as hell won't want us farming or growing food, or having cash around us, or owning our own homes. But those three things are pivotal to our well-being and survival, and they know it. They have been taking too much for too long, proved by the amount of spending and debt they have created, sending billions abroad but can't afford stuff, waste more billions on pretend PPE contracts, but sorry, there's no money in the pot. Blatant lies, and clearly they can't be trusted with money, so it seems bizarre that we still get up every day to earn money which they want to take 20% of, to waste it. And soon they want to decide what money you're allowed to have, and if you don't spend it, you lose it. I don't think so. I see a number of businesses are going back to cash from October. Looks like the hike in electricity bills has made some notice how much their card machines cost. Between electricity cost and charges per transaction. So to save money, go cash. And you will save a whole lot more than you know if we all went back to cash. Now. Because there are plenty of other people in this country who use it and trade with it. And I realise now that's why they tried to make people annoyed with cash trade. Surely you've all heard someone whinge about pubs, or markets, or hairdressers, or builders, where they say, I bet they are on the fiddle and not declaring it. There has been more than enough going into that pot for the longest time, and because it has been misused, it's no longer overflowing as it once was. So they want to fill it up again, to keep their habits, and their ideals, and their lifestyle. But by using you, your time, and your lifestyle to do it. Stop looking for the fair and equal society they have pretended they are trying to achieve, as it's a myth. It will never be fair for all, and we will never all be equal. But we are all people, I hope. And that should be a good starting point, that we have that in common. And we all need food, water, and shelter to adequately survive. Because while some people are squabbling about superficial differences, feelings, and opinions in mind, the powers that be are taking away basic living necessities for people in the real world and in real life. They don't actually care what colour you are, how tall or short you are, what gender you are, how capable you are, or how you feel on the inside. They really don't care. They see you as a commodity, not an individual. It just serves their purpose to allow you to think who you are really matters to them. It doesn't. And you shouldn't expect it to. We are viewed as cogs in their machine. They have made that clear. And when the cogs don't do as they are instructed or expected, they fix it. So don't be a cog. Be a person who can think and feel what they want to, while you are still able to. Money doesn't grow on trees. As we are told as children, usually, when asking for more. Money doesn't grow on trees, they said. And they are right, it doesn't. Or so we thought. It can't have escaped many people's attention that money is literally flowing like water at the moment. More than you could ever imagine being spaffed at the wall, as they would put it. They being the elected charlatans at the helm. Amounts we can hardly fathom. I'll list a few for you for context, for some items they just wrote off and spent in the last 2 years. The NHS debt wiped as at April 2020, £13.4 billion they say. PPE that wasn't used or up to standard,
9 billion. Coronavirus support fraud, 4.3 billion. Bounce back loans they don't expect to be paid back, 17.5 billion. Eye-watering figures, aren't they? And only a handful that I could recall seeing from the last 2 years. Although this type of thing goes back further and covers far more than I could ever be aware of. The NHS debt being wiped is the interesting one for me. The others were completely set up in an instant to be an instant withdrawal system, as if they turned the government into an ATM for themselves and friends. Years ago, with the introduction of PFI in 1997, the private finance initiatives, we changed the way the NHS operated. People purchased buildings and then rented them back to the NHS, ensuring a constant flow of money into someone else's pockets. Turns out some notable people purchased some, using offshore accounts so that they didn't have to pay tax on any of that rental income, and could very slowly bleed the service dry with high rents and terms. Because when the public are paying for it and don't get to check where the money ends up, it seems anything goes. After years of being told to tighten the purse strings, austerity, cut back, recessions, higher cost of living, low wages, etc., you would think there would be a limit. A final amount they are working towards or that the people could take. Nope. Just more debt, printing more money and adding zeros to their own salaries and contracts while adding a bigger minus to your life, monetary and otherwise. I do not know the entire financial system and how it works, only a very small part of it. But within that part, I deal with income and expenditure, budgeting and forecasting and overview. So it's not hard for me to see how we got here, and how we now have more greedy fingers in the pot than ever before, with no end in sight. It was never going to be sustainable. They just used that pretense to keep it all going. They were never looking for a solution, so I stick with one of my previous sayings. The system isn't broken, it's exactly as they mean it to be. And once you realise that, it does make you rather despondent towards wanting to be able to change it. It's a different ballgame knowing you are up against a level of corruption one can only just fathom, and it's not about systems and procedures and the good of society at all. It's about them being in control of your finances, emotions, thoughts, direction in life, and goals. They want us all reading from the same script, because make no mistake, they will still try to achieve what they want, but with less fuss and hassle. Because I believe that's all they see us as, a bit of a thorn in their side. Let's take sheep and cattle. To minimise the hassle with cattle, when taking from them what you want, there is a process of restricting them, holding them in place, and making them compliant. They don't just do it because they want to. With sheep, they use sheepdogs to round them up, and then mostly they do as they are told. So, these animals fall in line because that is what they are being encouraged to do. By way of fear, threat of or actual violence, isolation, and any other tactic we seem to employ to get what we want as humans. Even doing all the above to other humans. But for what purpose? It seems as though they want us all in a small box, consuming until we burst, spending money in their virtual world, not having person-to-person contact, and being medicated to the max. Maybe I've missed something, or I'm too cynical. But in all of their plans and visions of the future, they seem to have failed to factor in actually being human. It's disturbing. They seem to want to change us from human being to human doing. Augmented soldiers becoming part of a metaverse, making normality a taboo subject. And guess what? We are paying for it. Penny by penny, pound by pound. We pay for our own enslavement and to be in debt. Quite ironic, really. Or not really. There is no free ride, as my grandpa used to say. So in one way or another, you pay. Either with actual money, or time, or emotions. They take something from you in order to then give it back. But what do you do when there is little or no return for what you put in? Or you no longer require what they offer in exchange for your time and money? Well, here we are. So now we really need to think about it and decide. What do we actually want for the future? Do we want to see our old system crumble as they have intended and be morphed into a sterile, monitored, points-based validation system, where nothing is personal and you are not allowed to be an individual? Only group mentality will be authorised. I will cover that in a bit more depth on another article called The Hive. But we need a complete overhaul of our ways and systems. That much is obvious. But not by those who are currently in charge, as they are the ones who led us here in the first place, and clearly cannot be trusted with our safety, security, well-being, or future.